We're gathered here today to celebrate? I don't actually know. We all hated you, but I'm not like thrilled at the idea of dancing on your grave. I guess I'm here for the drinks. I'm making this video as a follow-up to my I Played Concord So You Don't Have To video. Mostly because some of it needs a follow-up after Concord shut down in a week and a half. Sony just got into the helicopter and left. Took everything with it. It's unheard of. This is the Richard Nixon 1974 of first-person shooters. I wasn't exactly rooting for it, but I thought if Fallout 76 could pull a small player base, I figured Concord would have at least lasted longer than the average Tinder matchup. That video is sort of a time capsule on what Concord was supposed to be, but I would like to put some more thought into the game, as well as correct some small misinformation on my end. If you want a bigger, broader review of Concord, my last video is still good, but I feel like adding a little more to it. For those not in the know, Concord was a live-action shooter developed by Sony, a company I generally like. They produced games like The Last of Us, Uncharted, and God of War, but those are single-player games. Concord was a multiplayer shooter, and aped to have the hero shooter qualities of Overwatch, offering a staggering roster of characters like Lennox and Itzy and Amari. It was announced during a state of play and was instantly panned. Everyone looked at it and screamed in horror. There was some interest in this weird Astrobot game that was announced soon after, but I don't think we should look into that much. If you haven't heard about the game, it's because Concord was caught between the two worst things any game can be stuck between: the people who hated it and good old-fashioned apathy. As one of the 700 people playing Concord when it released, I get to be the voice of authority in the room. There's a very small chance any of you were in this number, but if you were, I'm honored to be trauma bonded with you. Everyone else, congratulations, you were the apathy. Also, this is the last time I will talk about Concord. Not that I have much of a choice, but I will not think about this game after this video unless they re-release it in some form. The internet is full of strange games to talk about. It just so happens that Concord is a very strange beast, because if you played it and judged it on that gameplay alone, you would have no idea what the real problem is. Note that I said gameplay. If you were among the few chosen to boot up Concord, what you found was a mediocre shooter with basically no inspired ideas outside of being really ugly. It was technically functional and even fun at times. Yet the truth remained. The game was a massive flop. Everyone had a different explanation. Some said the character powers were lame, others said the time to kill was too low, there wasn't enough skill expression. I have my own theories, though I do want to say I don't think there was one sole thing that brought down Concord. I know people want to say it's the character designs, but if the game was fun enough, I'm pretty sure people would have been able to ignore that. I believe it was a death of 1,000 cuts, a giant mix of different things. The lack of innovation, the competition it faced, the $40 price tag, and whatever good qualities Concord had weren't enough to shine through, unless you like Destiny with the addictive qualities taken out. On the gameplay end, Concord was just a total boring fuzz most of the time. I could barely recall the character kits. If I didn't record this shit, I wouldn't have remembered it at all. However, I believe the biggest problem was the game mode they chose. Basically, you were playing a methodical team-based game with no structure. It was Call of Duty Kill Confirmed with Overwatch heroes. They put you behind the kitchen, asked you to cook the meal, then hit you with a car. If you wanted to play one of the support characters and have a well-rounded team like they were pushing you to do, I hope you were happy running around the wide-open maps without a clue, and if the DM said you ran into a DPS hero, rocks fall, gray screen for 10 seconds. And PvP was the only game mode. It's strange that they sprang for such intensive graphics, but didn't want to have any story mode to go alongside that. Hell, if you're ripping off Call of Duty game modes, I bet a zombies type option would have fit in nicely. $40, again, which is a lot more damning than most people realize. Its competitors are either free or do Concord already, but better. They also have established communities that keep themselves going, and a place for content creators to see a future. Black Myth Wukong was right there, too. I'd be afraid to plan my fucking wedding if a Souls-like was coming out the same week. This one isn't their fault exactly, but also Deadlock became public soon after, which was something new and interesting, while also being free, provided you had friends. So it wasn't available to Concord players anyway. And finally, the day Concord's last breath was uttered, Astrobot hits 10 out of 10 on most review outlets. And I can't play it because I'm too busy writing about Concord again. Which leads me to ask, what on earth were they thinking? The idea was formed in 2016, but didn't go far until 2020. The defining factor of the game was that it was taking multiplayer games and trying to infuse them with Sony's storytelling tech, the cutting-edge motion capture. Sometimes I forget a lot of multiplayer games lean into stylized graphics. Overwatch has good art direction, but if you really think about it, it's not a game meant to bedazzle you. It's what makes games like Hunt Showdown such technical marvels. It's a good-looking game, but one that also has to balance being a multiplayer title on top of that. However, Hunt knows that the best place to put all of that energy is in the environment. Concord really thought I was going to stop and give a shit about how detailed Daw was when I was busy blowing his head off. It doesn't really compliment that the character designs just seem creepy, so you end up with high-quality creepy. Again, I already covered some of this, so go here if you want to see me complain about Baz's jacket or something. Speaking about the look of Concord, there's an episode of Secret Level being developed about it. Secret Level is an Amazon show that's going to tell standalone stories about multiple games. And next to titles like God of War and Sifu was Concord. I know that TV shows take a while to plan. If a sudden cancellation can cause me a ton of grief, I dread to think of what it would do to a television show. I imagine a lot of the animation and plans are already put into motion. I don't know if they can just decide they're doing an episode on Uncharted at this point. But there's also going to be a very awkward silence when the audience asks what that corpse is doing on their show. However, based on the way the creators speak about Secret Level, I expect it to be the best thing to come out of Concord. Because what the game resulted in was this: a launch that couldn't even break 1,000 players. The only people who made money on Concord were creators, or the ones who have extremely rare game copies in their possession now. I was working on my next video when suddenly I got an on Discord that Concord was shutting down only a week and a half after release. And, oh my god, that's the Real Discussing Film account. At this time, we have decided to take the game offline and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. A refund will be issued back to your original payment method. If you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you might notice that this is the same footage from the last Concord video. The game was supposed to shut down on the 6th, but when I had the idea for this video, the game was already refunded to me by Steam, a whole 3 days early. I will enjoy buying literally anything else, but I was a little curious on what Concord looked like now that the hope was snuffed out. According to most people, it was a series of intense throwing, as jumping off the map and losing the game was the fastest way to gain XP and get the Platinum Trophy. Sadly, I'll have to settle for the word of mouth. But on the bright side, I guess the content creator tax has a subsidy or two. Hell, Overwatch didn't even have the balls to give me my money back, so we'll chop that in Concord's favor at least. I sincerely did not expect this. I expected Concord to float around a measly 1,000 players, not including PlayStation, and every few months I'd see an update and go, oh hey, that's Concord, I wonder if it's still ugly. Then it would unceremoniously shut down in a year or two. Gollum had more players. Gollum, the game that most people agreed was objective broken trash, garnered more interest than a functional game with no new ideas. Hell, hearing that the game was so awful that it would soon shut down might have even given it a last boost of players. You know what they say, the opposite of love isn't hate. The empathetic person in me isn't sure if I should dance on the grave or not. I've seen developers lose their jobs over much less. And I keep seeing people on Twitter tell me they're enjoying Concord. Whether they meant that was another thing. To be fair, this doesn't 100% mean the end. The blog post didn't entirely imply closing shop. We could see something similar to Final Fantasy XIV, where they unrelease the game and sell something totally different after the investors see how truly bad their ideas were. Many games have had terrible launches and come back. That said, Concord's failure does feel particularly strong, since it threw in the towel instantly. They didn't languish for a month or two, they took the Glass Joe approach. Time passes, and just because something seems bleak today, doesn't mean it always will be. That said, I guess the fresh start angle does sound exciting. People want Firewalk to suffer, and if that's you, you need more things in your life that are worth caring about. I would like them to make a single-player action game, or at least a co-op shooter, so that I can give the characters a second chance. The assets are all here, the game works, and if you have all of this stuff done, you might as well use it somewhere. If they just drop out a free-to-play version of what was already here, I think there's a higher audience that they can capture, but it also wouldn't gain my respect doing that. There is a chance we get a hybrid, where they attempt to plan a rebrand of Concord and invest money in it again, only to lose hope halfway through development and walk away only after another $1 million has been sunken in, which does sound very funny. If they re-release it, they better have a good plan, because the second, funnier option is that Concord gets to be the second Morbius that Sony has put out. Possibly this teaches executives a lesson about investing millions into vapid trend chasing instead of exploring fun new ideas. And if anything, they lost a lot of money. Several millions of dollars, and some heart attacks in their stuffy executive offices. And you know what I say to that? I say, Amen. Hey, thanks for watching. I swear to God, if in like a couple months they announce that Concord's coming back free to play with no changes, I'm gonna be pissed. Not because it's a bad idea, but because I never want to talk about this again. I would like to thank the people on Patreon who made this video possible. I would especially like to thank Mario Fan 997, Ethan A, Mini McNugget, Anthony R. Chambers, Pyrozine, Sturmfetter, Sparkbolt 120, and Sirop. And for both of our sakes, I hope I don't see you for a while. I swear to God, if they re-release it soon, I'm gonna be so upset. I don't want to think about Concord ever again. I hope they have a better plan than this.